First time I interviewed her, there was one less name on the cover of the book. It was just Madi Prewitt on the first book. Am I right?
You are right.
So much has happened.
So much has happened
Since we have gotten together. You have found a shirt that matches the cover of your new book.
It's like it was planned. It's like it was planned.
You are such a professional. It is now not just Madi Prewitt at the Story House. It's Madi Prewitt Trout with her brand new book in tow, and a lot has happened for you. Welcome to the Story House again. It's so great to see you.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
It's so good to be back. I feel like I never left.
Yeah, right?
I love it here.
It was actually, you never left, and it got kind of awkward.
Yeah, I know.
The
and
West family.
I was hanging out with your daughters, and y'all finally had to be like, you gotta go.
Kick you out.
Yeah.
Madison, you gotta go live your life.
Right.
You gotta go get married.
And I got married.
You got married.
It worked out.
Can we start there?
Yeah, let's start
Can we
there.
talk about life as, so now you're a newlywed. Well, let's see. How long has it been? A year?
It's been almost a year.
Almost a
year. Mm-hmm.
So you're coming up on the 1 year anniversary.
So I'm a professional on marriage.
You are a professional. You have the book to prove
I'm like,
it.
actually not at all. I'm the opposite of that. We are figuring it out. The first 6 months was quite the adjustment, but now it's really been just so sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a gift just watching like the humility it takes to just lay your life down for someone. And
yes.
I've been in my prayer closet every morning,
Yeah.
just like, Lord, show me how to be a good wife. And but it's been so fun.
And tell me how you met your husband.
So what's crazy, actually, it wasn't that long after we recorded the podcast for my other book that I met him, because I was recording a podcast for my first book.
Right.
And one of the podcast hosts at the end of the recording said, "Hey, are you single?" And I was like, yeah,
Awkward.
who's asking? And he was like, "I have a friend I want to introduce you to, but I'm not going to tell you who it is." And, month passed by and he was like, "Okay, I've prayed about it. I've thought about it. I think you two would be really great together." And I ended up finding out who it was. You know, I was like, he played basketball. He loves Jesus. He's cute. Like, I'll go on a date with him.
So did you do like Instagram stalking?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I Instagram stalked him.
And you approved, like, you're like,
approved.
okay.
Yeah, I was like, he seems awesome. He just like had posted videos and he just looked like he was fun and joyful and loved God. And I was like, okay, I'll go on a date with him. And I kid you not, Matthew, on our date, I called my mom right when we finished our date and I said, "I just met my husband."
Ooh.
I knew. I just knew. I was like, I've never met someone like this in my whole life. Like the joy he just had this like magnetic personality. And as he was talking about like how Jesus had radically saved his life, because he had only been a believer when we met for like 3 years, and had just this radical transformation, crazy story and testimony. And I'm like watching him share listening to him share his story. And I'm just like, wow. Like
incredible.
Such different stories, such different, upbringings, but at the same time, our love for Jesus, like you could just tell it was there. We were passionate. We were like, our poor waiter, he was coming back like every 5 seconds, like, are you guys ready to order? Like,
because you guys were just deep in conversation right away.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the restaurant first date?
It was a Mexican restaurant called Mi Cocina, Dallas, Texas.
In Dallas, Texas.
Chill, just a chill restaurant.
Because Dallas, was that where you were living at the time? Okay.
Yeah, so I was living in Dallas. He was from Dallas, but was working at Kanakuk in Branson, Missouri.
Yeah,
and
which is like a hugely popular Christian camp.
Huge. And he was working there with one of the programs they offer there. And then he came back to Dallas to take me on a date.
Wow. And was it technically a blind date then?
No, because we definitely knew before who we were, but we didn't know anything about each other. We had never talked. We'd never had a conversation. We'd never been around each other. So kind of.
And with you having been on The Bachelor, like, did that make dating after, like, were you always just kind of going into a date, like thinking, okay, this person probably knows me from TV. This is awkward. Like, are they really going to like me from, like, was that an added layer of complexity having been on national TV?
I think it definitely made it to where I was a little bit more hesitant and I was a little bit more cautious of just, what are your motives? Do you want to go on a date with me for my heart and my love for Jesus and, because you can see us impacting the kingdom together, or are there ulterior motives? And so that was, something that I would go through my mind. But with this situation, because it was such a blind date and it was a trusted source and someone who knew us both,
Felt guard down a little bit.
I felt great going into it and just.
It's like there's a John Mayer lyric says, "Who do you love, me or the thought of me?"
Mm.
And like, I've always like, I remember thinking, so I met my wife before I got a record deal. I was auditioning for a record deal, and I was like, I didn't have anything. And it was one of those things where I'm like, if she likes me now, she really likes me.
She's gonna love me later. Yeah.
But I can imagine it's like harder when you've like had this big spotlight shined on you. It's like the celebrity component of it can make relationships even more complex or difficult to really decipher. Like, but it sounds like you knew right away. Now, was he texting his family right away?
I think he was a little nervous. Like he was in his head, like, does she like me? And I was like over here, like, I'm gonna marry him.
Or were you trying to like not show him that, or were you like, was it uncontrollable?
I don't know. I feel like I was still trying to play like cool, you know, but I didn't want to show all my cards at the beginning, you know. But also, I mean, we were very clear about, hey, I'm not trying to date just to date. Like my goal is to find the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And so this isn't just meaningless. Like this is, intentional and purposeful. Of course they're not being pressure, attached to that, but at the same time, very clearly stating this is our vision and this is our goal. And so we knew that coming into it, but yeah, I don't know.
That's incredible.
I don't know how he felt.
Dallas to
Waco, Texas.
And you did that because he's working at a church there?
He got hired to work as the young adults pastor at Harris Creek Baptist Church in Waco, Texas. And we are just a part of a local church and serving and loving it. And it's been really great. Like the transition at first. Well, the transition at first is a little hard. There's not a lot of food options.
No, what about, but you got all the Chip and Joe, goodness.
And that really does. I love like their coffee shops there. I mean, there's some good. It just took a minute to adjust.
But it's not Dallas.
It's not Dallas. I mean, Dallas is like you got a healthy restaurant, coffee shop around every corner, everywhere.
Well, and now your dad is a coach at Auburn basketball, right?
Yes.
Did you live in Auburn, Alabama as well? Because that's very small town.
Yeah. And Waco kind of reminds me of Auburn, honestly, which I love. I do feel at home, college town, smaller town vibes. My dad hates that I have some Baylor shirts now. He's like, excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, you need that Auburn gear. That's why I was looking for an Auburn shirt today and I found blue, which is the closest
Which I appreciate. Yeah. And I should have brought you an Auburn shirt next time.
We've been looking at Auburn though. My daughter loves Auburn University. We visited. So it's very, I can see why you loved it there.
That would bring a tear to my eye.
Right?
I would love that if she went there. There's great churches and people there.
Yeah.
So.
And you graduated from there.
I graduated from Auburn and then stayed in Auburn for a little bit and then moved to Birmingham, Alabama before I went on the show.
Okay, so from Birmingham to The Bachelor, and now Waco, Texas.
And now Waco, Texas.
Adjusting to Waco, Texas.
Yes.
Does he travel with you at all when you travel to do speaking engagements or interviews like this, things like that?
Not often unless they're in close proximity. Okay. I think, ministry is pretty full-time, all hands on deck. And so not as much flexibility. But yeah, we're pumped though with where God has us and we know it's where we're supposed to be.
Okay. So biggest, like you were saying, the first 6 months adjustment, biggest surprise in the first year of being married, of like what married life is like. Is there something that surprised you the most?
I mean, when you do dating God's way, you literally go from 0 to 100. Cause it's like, we didn't live together. We, hadn't slept together. There were just so many different elements that we were figuring out for the very first time. When
Unlike
you get married.
So many in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so it's like, wow, I haven't been around you this much. Point blank,
Wow, yes.
I haven't seen how you do your laundry and how you like to eat and all of these things, because it was just like before we'd go to restaurants and eat or, he would drop me off back at my house with my roommate. And so there was just so much that you learn within, that like dynamic.
Life together,
just life
24/7.
Yes. And so one of the funniest things was like, even just the way we would spend our mornings, like I wanted to wake up and make breakfast and sit down and have a conversation and talk about our day. And he wanted to like immediately wake up, go to coffee shop, read the word. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be an adjustment. But then I learned that his way was better and we needed to get in the word of God before we talked because, there were just moments where we would sit down and have breakfast together before either of us had spent time with Jesus. And we would just fight about silly things like over eggs or something. And it would just be pointless.
Yeah.
And so we did learn pretty early on, like, okay, this gives you life. This does not. This is what would serve you. And so learning those things, I think, about each other and really, I mean, truly just laying your life down for the other person. And I think in singleness and in dating, it's a lot easier to be thinking just about yourself. Like, oh, you know, because you're evaluating the relationship. You know, can this person lead me? Can this person serve me and love me and lead me closer to Jesus? And then you get married and it's almost like you flip the switch and it's like, oh, now I'm called to lay my life down and like not think about myself and just serve you again and again and again. And so I think that was quite the adjustment.
Yeah, I feel like I've always said that like getting married was the first like smack in the face with, oh, it's not all about me.
Right.
And then like having a kid was like another like, oh, it's really not about me, right? And by degree, like when you add people to that like inner sanctum, that inner circle of your life and your family grows, there's that reminder of it's like it's this fight against selfishness, you know what I mean? And you talk about married couples fighting about simple things like eggs. It's like, I've never heard of that. That never happens in the West house. But but it is funny. Like I think if my wife had known, because you know, we chose the same path that you chose. And I love that. I love the example that you set and that you talk openly about how you chose to date. Because I want my daughters to see that example. And there are not a lot of those examples anymore. But if my wife would have seen how messy I am beforehand, and she jokes about how she would come to my like apartment. I had a little duplex in Nashville, and every time she would come, you know, I was like gonna clean that place up. Like it looked immaculate, right?
She's like, what happened?
Right. And then after, like now that we're married, it's like, she's like, you fooled me, man. Like you were the
liar.
messiest person ever. So there are those rude awakenings that we find out.
Totally.
I love that your rude awakening was, oh, he wants to read the Bible every morning.
Right.
Like, if
I'm like, oh, you're holy? No,
if that's the worst, I think you nailed it. You just hit the jackpot.
No, totally. But it's just learning the things that this person, you know, what gives them more life or that they prefer or their expectations and things like that you just didn't, you know, have to really know in dating.
No, it's incredible. And doing it God's way doesn't mean it's going to be easy either, right? I mean, there are going to be those adjustments that are made when you're learning how to coexist with somebody.
Absolutely.
What I love about the chance to talk to you today and, you know, a little over a year apart and seeing, you know, so much of our podcast is about and so much of my music and my life is about encouraging people to know that there's power in your story. And a lot of times we're so busy running through our stories, not walking through them, but like racing through our lives so fast that we don't maybe stop long enough to think about how each chapter of our story that we're living can be a chapter that gives God glory. And that if we allow ourselves to like see, hey, God, how do you want to use me right now? Like we might be amazed. And sometimes we think, well, I got to have it all figured out before I can be a source of wisdom or encouragement for somebody else. What I'm struck by with like your path is like, we've spoken twice and this is your second book, The Love Everybody Wants. What you're looking for is already yours. You are living your story, but like choosing, I was thinking about it this morning, like you're somebody who's living their story, but also daring to like give their story in the middle of it, right? So you've just gotten married and you've chosen to write this book about love. And I love that it's like, it's like literally they're getting to learn with you, not from you, with you.
Yeah, we're learning together.
In real time. And there's an authenticity in that I love. So tell me, like, what was it about this book, The Love Everybody Wants, that you felt like, okay, I'm going through this right now. I've just gone through this dating process. I've just met the love of my life. We've just gotten married. I want to share my experience in this book. Tell me what went into this inspiration here.
So the crazy thing is, I started writing this book single and miserable. Was
that the title? Single and Miserable?
It should have been.
That was the working title.
Single and Bitter. I'm like, perfect. Honestly, it probably
That'd be a bestseller.
I'm like, darn it. Send it to my publishers. They're like, we made a mistake. No, I started writing this book single and asking God why. Like, why am I not getting what I want? And why is it not looking the way that I thought it would? And why is it being given to everyone else but me? And then it led to, a lot of self-doubt of, am I hard to love? Is there something wrong with me? Do I have a sign on my forehead that says, keep looking, don't choose me, And I just remember wrestling with all of those thoughts and feelings. And so really started writing this book, honestly, as just therapy to myself and reminding myself of God's promises and God's truth. And I had this one day where I was just in my room and I was praying to the Lord and I was a little frustrated, and I was just like, God, this feels unfair. You know the desires of my heart, right? Like you put them there. So why aren't you giving them to me,
Yeah.
And having that whole moment. And I just felt like he impressed something on my heart that just so convicted me deeply of just, Madi, you're looking for the right thing, just in all the wrong places. You're looking for divinity and humanity. You're looking for purpose in a person. You're trying to find your everything in someone else when it can only be found in me. And it's like, of course, we've probably heard that before, but that just shifted everything for me. I was like, okay,
awesome.
You're right. I've been idolizing this, relationship status or, wanting to find a spouse. And that really shifted something in me. And Matthew 22:36-40, what was laid on my heart and the inspiration behind this book, which is the 2 greatest commandments. And when I read over those verses, I saw it in a new light. And I saw these three loves, jump off the pages that Jesus is talking about. And not only the importance of these 3 loves, but also the importance of the order of these 3 loves. And so that's what I talk about in this book, it all starts with Jesus. And if we don't get that right, we're going to be
love number one.
That's love number one. That's the foundation of everything. And so if we don't get that right, it's like trying to build a house on sand, right? Like it's just going to keep falling down. Or as soon as a storm comes, like that thing is crashing.
That's right.
And which it talks about in Matthew 7, right? And so it's like realizing that he is the foundation of all other loves. And that's what our heart was made to be loved and to love him. And so by him and for him. And so because of that, like trying to find that in anything else is just going to leave us on this endless cycle of being empty and confused.
Right.
And so for me, realizing that was so important. And then from there, it goes on to say, in Matthew 22, love your neighbor as yourself. And so if we don't know what it looks like to love ourselves the way that God loves us and to view ourselves the way that God views us and to value ourselves the way that God values us, we're going to be trying to find that in someone else. And so for me, it was, I got to learn how to love God and then love myself, not the world's way, not by spa treatments and a lot of Instagram followers and, approval of people, but God's way of finding my identity in him, knowing my worth in Christ, so that from that place, I can enter into relationships from a place of abundance and already knowing who I am, already knowing that I'm whole in Christ and not coming from this place of lack saying, hey, I need you to complete me or fulfill me.
Yeah.
And so that was what, God spoke to me that really convicted me.
That's
and
awesome.
That was, kind of the inspiration behind the book.
And then the third love being
the loving people. Because once those other 2 relationships are healthy and strong, that's what sets us up for success, to have healthy and strong relationships with other people.
Amazing. What's the, you talk about red flags.
Yeah.
And as a girl dad, like I think about that and I'm like, it's funny because we, there's a song that may or may not be coming out at some point.
Let's go. Am I getting the sneak peek right now?
But the thought of red flags, and you kind of lay some red flags out. I was watching on Instagram, you had this post where you were like popping these balloons.
Yes.
And they were like red flags.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about
Totally.
red flags and why you thought it was important to put that in this book?
Yeah.
Because really this is, who are you hoping picks this book up? Obviously everybody.
Everybody, especially women. I think my heart was like, I want women all across the world, no matter believer, non-believer, married, single, and gay, it doesn't matter. Like, this is a message for everybody. I was very intentional with what I called this book, and I chose to put the word everybody in the title for a reason.
Yeah.
Because I really did want this to be a message that every person understood, hey, there is a love that is available to all of us, but it's up to us to accept and receive that love. And until we receive it, we're going to be left confused and hopeless for pretty much the rest of our lives. And so I want want women to understand, all people to understand their worth and value in Christ, and knowing because of that what you deserve and what we're called to give as Christians and believers to other people. And so that's the heart, is to find that love in Jesus above all else. But yeah, red flags. I have a whole chapter on this.
Yes. And that's why I like, and red flags are about like having discernment, right?
Yeah. Ultimately.
Right.
Totally.
So talk about some of the red flags that you want my daughters to be aware of.
Yeah. So the chapter title is called Love is Blind. And then the subtitle is Red Flag Alert.
Nice.
And basically tackling this idea of like, if we don't realize, like, love shouldn't be blind. Like, we should live with an awareness and an understanding of, the love we're called to give and the love we should be receiving, from others, especially when it comes to a significant other, because the person we choose to say yes to and spend the rest of our life with is going to have a huge impact on our becoming and our purpose and our relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very important. And so the red flags that we tolerate or ignore or overlook at the beginning is going to end up laying the groundwork and foundation for the kind of relationship that we build on. So we should not ignore them. We should pay attention to them. We should lean into them. And we should trust that hesitation or that gut feeling we feel inside that feels like, there might be something off, or is this really God's best? I would say lean into that. Don't run from it. And so I talk about 7 different red flags in the chapter, of just some things that I've found in my own life, in past relationships or in, some of my friends that I've seen of, this is something we should pay attention to. And so one of them is when, their behaviors and their beliefs don't align. Anybody can talk the talk, right? Anybody can say and give the perfect answer, but what do their patterns speak to? What do their, what are their day-to-day decisions? What is their life? Who they surround themselves with? What does that communicate to you? Sometimes their behavior is truly the only answer we need.
Wow.
I think we can be like, God, give me a sign, is this the person?
Like, well,
and God's like, hello, just look at what they're, look at how they're treating you. Look at how they treat others. Look at how they, walk with me. They don't walk with me faithfully. They only walk with me when, it's easier, it's convenient, or it's a Sunday morning,
Right.
And so really looking at those things and evaluating those things. Another one is don't date potential. I think it's really easy, especially like coming from a woman, speaking from a woman's perspective, to want almost this like fixer-upper relationship. Like we see the Hollywood movies, right? We see the rom-coms, and it's like, find the bad boy, turn him good, and it's like,
not a project.
Yes, and it's like, that's just not biblical.
Or
Like,
we would call it, when I was a teenager, it was like missionary dating.
Yes.
It'd be like, my dad would be like, is she a Christian? I'm like, I'm going to make her a Christian. I mean,
Right.
don't worry, Dad. I got
I'm going to
this.
save her. And
We literally had those conversations in the West House. It was like, does she love Jesus? I'm like, oh, she will.
yeah, one day, mark it down. Yeah, no, exactly. And that, that might be some people's stories.
Sure.
But I think what I've seen for the most part, most of the time, what ends up happening is, in your hope to change them, you get changed for the worse.
Wow.
And you get dragged down,
That's
and
so true.
you end up compromising your values and your standards and your convictions.
That's so true.
And so it may not always turn out that way, but I would say it's probably a 96, 98% chance it turns out that way. And so don't chance it.
Yeah.
And, my encouragement is, don't date a fantasy or a maybe or a one day or a could be. Like, date someone for who they are right now. Like, date someone that when you spend time with them and you're around them, you leave wanting to know Jesus more. Like, you're like, this person makes me more like Jesus. This person pushes me closer to Jesus. This person helps me make a difference for Jesus. And they're impacting your identity, your faith, your purpose, all for the better.
Yeah, if that's already happening, then
Right.
there's a greater chance that
That it's
going
gonna
to
continue.
be the environment your
Exactly.
married life is going to be.
Yeah.
It's so true, and I think it's something I've encouraged my daughters with so many different times, and at the same time understanding that like who Maddie's going to be a year from now is different than who Maddie is
Totally.
today, right?
Yeah.
And the same goes for your husband, same for my wife. It's like, I can honestly, like, my wife and I are 20 years into marriage, and it's like who I've become and because of God working on me. We're all works in progress,
Yeah.
right? So there's grace for all of us in that. But like who I've become as a result of marrying who God had for me is like, I've become a better man because of that. And I think that's one of the great rewards of having high standards, of looking out for red flags and and not like dating a project.
Yeah.
But actually go, no, I want to wait for the person that God has for me. Like the reward of that is that one of the rewards is that you grow as a person.
So true.
And obviously our goal is to look more and more like Jesus every day.
Yeah.
And have any of us perfected it? Absolutely not.
Right.
But I love that idea, that warning. The red flag chapter is one that I'm going to highlight for my daughters when I lay this new book on there. And they love to read and they love you too. So like, I know I said this the last time we got to talk, but just, a continued thank you from dads like me going, hey, like I am just like praying for like godly voices that my daughters can look up to, and not just voices, but the way that they're living out their life and their actions, and then sending out encouraging words like this. Like you're someone they can look up to and relate to because you're living that out right now and showing, hey, here's how it can be done. And it's a counter message to the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Very counterculture.
Talk about a little bit how you felt like you're strong about your faith on social media. You've got a huge social media following. Obviously, being on national television, like since being on national television, you've continued to be outspoken about your faith. Do you get negative feedback from that? Like, has that been something that you've dealt with, and has it ever made you wonder? I know this is a little off topic from the book for a second, but
no, yeah,
you're not mixing words in this book. Like this book is drenched in like the truth of God's word and God's plan for your life, God's plan for your marriage and your love life and your dating process. Like, has that ever been a struggle where you're like, I want to be bold in my faith, but man, I'm getting such heat. I'm getting such pushback.
Yeah. I mean, I think if in today's world, if we're not taking a stand for our faith and getting lashback, if our life doesn't look extremely different than the rest of the world, that should create more question marks. And, I think that should be more of where we would struggle as believers of like, I can't lay my head down at night knowing that I haven't stood for truth and, spread the name of Jesus and the good news, of hope that I believe that's changed my life.
Yeah.
Like who am I to withhold that from other people, even if it comes at a cost. Right. And so for me, there's definitely been moments where it's been really hard. But then, I read the word and I read the Bible and I'm like, it's very clear that they hated Jesus. So of course they're going to hate us. It's clear that if you're of the world and you look like the world, you make sense to the world. But if you're of Jesus and you're following Jesus, you're not going to make sense to the world. And so I think to me, I almost see it as a compliment and as an inspiration to like, I'm doing something right.
So
if the world doesn't
it lights the
understand
fire more so.
Most of the time. There's moments where I'm like, I quit. I'm done.
Yeah.
For sure. But I would say most of the time, having that understanding of like, one, like this is all spiritual. Like this is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual battle. And our struggle is not against flesh and blood, right? It's Ephesians 6. Like our struggle is not against flesh and blood. When I get attacked, all these things start happening, I'm like, the enemy right now is like doing everything he can to silence me. The enemy is doing everything he can to stop this message from getting out. Yeah. And that's what he does. I mean, for all of us, he doesn't want, the good news being shared. And so for me, it's just continuing to like remind myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. I mean, my life verse is Acts 20:24. And I have to remind myself of that constantly of, Madi, your only aim is to finish the race and complete the task of testifying to the good news of God's grace. That's why I'm here. So just reminding myself of that and not getting caught up in, do people accept me or reject me? Yeah. Do they like me? Do they not? And which goes back to like Galatians 1:10. Like, are we living for the approval of people or are we living to please and honor God?
Right.
And so at the end of the day, knowing I choose to fear God more than I fear people. I choose to please God more than I'm trying to please people, which I don't always do perfectly, but I try my best to just continue to come before the Lord and be like, just show me what honors you.
Well, you talk about how it's spiritual too, is like, and we know, I mean, the enemy would love for nothing more than to absolutely derail your life with an ungodly relationship, right?
Totally.
What can set you off course more than aligning yourself with someone other than who God had planned for you, or entering into a type of relationship that's not God honoring, or you wind up compromising, like you said, making decisions because you've decided to take on a project. And so I could see where the enemy is not going to want a message like this to come out, because this is like, hey, let me join you on this journey and let me help you understand what it looks like to have a healthy and whole
Yeah.
dating relationship that leads to a healthy marriage and those kinds of things. Talk about breaking up with shame. That's one of
Yeah.
the things that I loved that terminology because you kind of put it in dating terms.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to break up with shame, and why is that so important as
Yeah.
we're looking for the love that everybody wants?
Yeah. I love that you touched on this earlier because you were saying how like I was writing this from a place of authenticity of what I was actually walking through and not from a place of like, I've already figured it out. Here's my knowledge.
Right.
And I think that is so true. And so like even me writing on shame and rejection and all of these things, it's like, this is what I'm feeling. And like, this is what I'm faced with. And this is what I'm going through. And one thing that I've learned is just like anytime the enemy promises like, hey, in this sin package that looks so good, if you fall for it, it's going to be pleasurable and freeing and all of these things. And anytime I fall for that, all that comes with it is shame and separation from God and people. And it's so crazy how he can package it in this, really
Make it look
enticing
good.
thing.
Yeah.
But all that comes with it is shame and regret and resentment and so much more. And so I've seen in my own life, my struggles with secret sin or whatever it may be that led to great shame. And one, dangerous thing about shame is that it becomes our identity. Like it's not just like something about, something we've done. It like becomes an identity that we take on. And that's where it can get really, really dangerous, and why it is so important to break up with shame, because we serve a God of redemption. And so what's so cool is that when I had that moment of realization of like, okay, like for me, college changed everything. Freshman year of college, I'd been following Jesus for most of my life, but I, finally had this moment where I was like, I want to make my relationship with the Lord my own, not my parents, not my churches, but like my own relationship. And I'd realized that I had been, walking in, just secrecy and struggling with sin and not telling anyone. And where everything changed for me was when I joined this small group at my church, and I just confessed. I confessed sin. And I was like, this is so awkward and this feels so uncomfortable.
Right.
But I just brought it into the light. And in that, I found so much freedom. And the shame that I had been walking with and carrying for years that was affecting my confidence, my identity, my value, my relationships. Like as soon as I brought it into the light and had believers pray over me, I was like, why would not everybody want to walk in this freedom? But I think for a lot of us, we don't even know that it's available to us, or, we've never had the opportunity or maybe been told. And so, one of the things that I talk about in breaking up with shame is that like one of the ways you can break up with shame is by walking in the right, like with the right community, having accountability and community around you that you can just confess to, and that will call you higher and hold you accountable and pray over you. And then of course, like just being in a right standing relationship with the Lord and repenting.
Because shame too, like as it relates to like what you think you're worthy of, I just think of the shame in our lives can make us go, well, you're not worthy of a healthy relationship because look at what you've done, or look at the relationships you've had in the past, or the choices you've made. And so to be free from that means to turn from that and then embrace like this self-worth that allows us to aim high.
Absolutely. And sometimes the shame we carry isn't even self-induced. Like sometimes it's something that was done to us, or something that what we didn't even have control over.
For sure, yeah.
And, that's where it can get really hard, is when our identity is through the lens of what's been done to us, or something that we didn't even have control over. And I talk about that too, of just there's power even in forgiveness. And just, even if there was someone that really hurt you and shaped, how you view yourself because of something that was done to you, there is crazy power in just saying, I forgive you. Even if you don't say it to them, like praying, like, Lord, purify my heart. Like I want to be holy and blameless before you. And so if there's any, if I'm harboring any unforgiveness or bitterness, like I want to be free.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I've always felt like the devil, he doesn't just want to get you to mess up or focus on a messy part of your story, whether it's one you've created or one that's been handed to you.
Yeah.
He wants to isolate you and get you to believe that you're the only one who has that.
Absolutely.
And so when you write a story like this and when you tell your story like that, you're letting somebody know you're not the only one who deals with shame, or you're not the only one who's struggled to think that they're worth a healthy relationship, or whatever it is. And so I feel like there's power in like the community that you're talking about. It's so good. Talk about the QR codes here, because I feel like you've created a book where you want it to be interactive beyond just the pages.
Yeah.
So when I go to the end of a chapter, I'm seeing this bonus content with a little squiggly QR code.
Yeah.
What happens when my daughter goes to that?
Yeah. So it'll take you to extra bonus content. Some of it
It's like videos of you?
Videos. Some of it just audios of prayers. Some of it playlists, like different Spotify playlists to like worship music to listen to.
Did you curate all that stuff? Was that all your idea?
Yeah,
That's so cool.
I just was like, I really want, in today's day and age, like I wanted there to be, an interactive,
I love it.
Phone social component to it.
I want to steal that idea. Do you mind if I steal it?
Please do. I'm sure someone else has had it before too, but I was like, I really want my heart in this was to even just like take on culture's approach to love, but then add biblical truths to it. So each chapter title is like different, sayings or phrases or quotes or songs, that our culture says, this is how you date, or this is how you love, or this is, what it looks like to be confident. And I wanted to take those and be like, actually, but this is what God says. And this is what, his truth is. And so, yeah, it was just a little additional fun component.
How does it feel to have not one, but two books completed and done? I know how much hard work it is.
Yeah.
And I know how nerve-wracking it can be to like release your story into the world, but this has got to feel pretty exciting, right?
It's exciting. It's humbling. It's nerve-wracking. This is the most vulnerable thing, honestly, in this book that I've ever done.
And that's why it's going to resonate with so many people.
It was there were multiple parts where I would text my mentor and be like, I'm really scared to leave this in here. Should I take it out? And she was like, no, that's the very reason you should leave it in here. And just things that I open up about, like what I alluded to, 13, 14-year-old Madi struggling with things that she didn't feel that she could share with people. And I think that like you said this, but the enemy wants us in isolation because in secrecy, that's where shame spreads. Like in isolation, that's where shame thrives. And so for me, for a long time, just walking in things that I didn't feel like I could talk about, or I didn't know how to open up, or I felt like this, no one else is struggling with this, was just a lie that I continued believing. And I, because of that, it just affected so much in me, and I carried shame for a long time. And so in this book, I open up about a lot of those things that it's scary. I'm like, so it's a vulnerable book, but I'm also very passionate about this message because in the midst of writing this myself, I got so many countless DMs from so many people just saying, I'm struggling with rejection. I'm struggling with shame.
Yeah.
I don't know how to date well. I don't know how to pursue purity in today's world. And I realized I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one struggling.
You get to, I mean, we have to do this. We have to like shine a light in every dark corner of culture and what the enemy's trying to do and wrecking people's lives with unhealthy relationships and unhealthy choices. We have to, the Lord has uniquely equipped you and your story and the platform he's given you to be a bright light in that and to help especially young women. I know this book's for everybody, but like I just keep, my vantage point is as a girl dad just going like, this is it. Like, and I'm excited to put a copy of this on each of my daughter's beds and say, give this a read and prayerfully, and just know like, this is your father's heart too, for your mom and dad. Pray for you in your life and in the relationships you seek out, dating and otherwise. I just think it's so important. So the thing that I'm excited about is it seems like you're determined through every phase of your life to keep giving of your story in the midst of it and not waiting. You're not going to look back when you're 60 someday and say, this is my manifesto. Like, you're just going to keep doing this, aren't you? Like, there's probably going to be a book that's going to come out about the first year of marriage or something.
Gosh, Grant's like, no.
It's like, he don't do laundry. Is that the title?
He don't do laundry.
He don't do laundry.
Yeah.
But congratulations on like being willing to be, I know congratulations sounds weird. Congratulations on the book, but also thank you for being like willing to be vulnerable and like, hey, I'm going to share from this part of my story in the hopes that it reaches people who are in the same spot. And may you continue to do that. Like, I think as a songwriter, like that's our journey as well of going like, okay, how do I actively like I'm writing my emotions, I'm writing my story in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I look back over like songs I've written, I'm like, it's almost like this audio scrapbook of my life,
Yeah.
right? And but there's a reason why you're going through that in that moment. And likely there's something that God can do through it to help somebody else know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
So 10 more books down the road, we'll be coming to the story house and you'll be walking
I
us
hope
through
so.
every phase.
I'm like, I got to get back over here soon. Yeah, no, I think that's such a good point. And I hope it's encouraging to those even listening that there is power in your story, and in allowing God to use you. You never know. Like, it will blow your mind just saying yes to God and being obedient
Be
to
willing,
God
yeah.
and being willing to let him use you, and just the way that that could lead to someone else's yes to God. That could lead to someone else's step of faith and courage just by you saying yes.
Yeah.
And so again, it's just that living, dying to self. Like, it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me. And just having that mindset of like, my goal in this life is to just be a light and to point others back to Jesus. And so remembering that this life isn't about you, but it's all about Jesus.
Well, you're doing it. Madison Prewitt is now Madison Prewitt Trout. The original title of this book was Single and Miserable. But look what God can do. The original cover was going to be black and gray and
tears, mascara down my eyes.
And instead it's beautiful pink and bright. And the title is The Love Everybody Wants. What You're Looking For Is Already Yours. The book's available everywhere. When you get the book, you get to click on these QR codes after every chapter. There's also, it looks like there's some guided questions and things like that as well, just to be digging in and discovering the 3 loves. I love that you said that, and I can't wait for my daughters to read this as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome back at the Story House anytime. Next time I'll wear my pink shirt so we can match.
Have to match, yeah.
But I'm so excited to see how God's going to use this to help people grow in their spiritual lives and in their relationships with others.
Well, thanks for having me.